Brown paper packaging is one of the best free junk journaling supplies. I've already made an entire journal out of it, and now I'm going to be showing you 5 creative ways that I am using it within the pages to make ephemera and to start filling this journal up. So let's get started with the first one, which is actually these paper beads. Now, I have never really made paper beads before. I've seen them everywhere, and there are so many amazing tutorials that show you step by step how to do this because it's quite fiddly, but once you get the hang of it, I can totally see how this could be super addictive, and I think it's really great, especially for the brown paper packaging that doesn't quite have that like warm, rich tone. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about when I open up a package and it's got paper in it and I think, oh, free journaling supplies, and then it's like grayish brown paper. Something like this is perfect for that because we can still use the paper and we can turn it into something that doesn't quite look like brown paper, if that makes sense. So like I said, there are some great tutorials here on YouTube on how to make paper beads, so I will leave them linked down below because this was a little bit tricky to film as well, obviously because it's hard to show you what I'm actually doing, but I was just rolling these around a crochet hook that I had. I think people use like bead rollers or like cocktail sticks as well, and I just sealed it with some PVA glue just to make sure that obviously it doesn't unravel itself when I've used it. And there's different like shapes and sizes that you can make as well of these beads, and I wanted to kind of keep the like brown paper aesthetic almost, but still transform it. So what I decided to do was I actually used some like shimmery watercolors, which gave them a really nice effect, and I think it matched the cover that I had done as well pretty well. So I just threaded a few of them onto this white like ribbon lace and tied it onto a paper clip here, as you can see. And this made it really easy to attach onto the back cover of this journal. So the journal that I've made, it's only one signature, so it doesn't have a spine to necessarily attach anything to. So I just added it to the back cover here and put a little bit of washi tape there on the back just to make sure that the bits that were left over from tying the ribbon on didn't poke out. And it's added a little bit of sparkle. So the next way that I wanted to use the brown paper is actually something that I have done several times before, but I haven't really done a lot of it on brown paper. So I love to make these like faux washi strips. They're just collage strips essentially, and you can do this either on a full sheet and then cut it up, or you can do it like I've done here where I've cut the strips ready. I kind of prefer to cut them up just so that I can get an idea of what it's actually going to look like, but obviously if you just do it all on one sheet and then cut it up, you do get that like surprise then of how all the different papers and mark making looks. So this is a really easy way to use up your paper scraps. So any sorts of little offcuts that you have lying around, I collect way too many of them, so projects like this, it's really good for me to actually use up my stash. And I really like the warmth of the brown paper as a background for this, and there's different ways that you can kind of make it pop. So I used a lot of like white as contrast and also some softer tones with those pinks and greens, and I used a mix of different things. So I had book pages, but I also had the green at the start that you saw me add on. That was literally just some cardboard packaging that had a nice pattern on it, so I kind of tore off the bit that had the nice pattern, and to make it not so thick I separated the top layer just so that it didn't get too bulky. And so I was just adding lots of different things here, like tissue paper here as well, which this actually blended quite nicely into the brown paper there as a background. So I was just sort of adding the little scraps in different places and trying to spread them out, but also layer them up as well. And I added a few stamps here, so I wanted to keep things fairly neutral, so I turned them around and just used the backs of the stamps, which also then just gives another opportunity for adding any mark making onto, and just brought in some neutral warm tones to contrast with the brown paper. I think that is something that I've noticed as I've been working on this project and using more brown paper as a focus of this junk journal, is that it's really great to bring in that level of contrast with the whites or the blacks onto the kraft paper, because it's almost acting as a little bit of like a mid-range, and so you can really go either way. And I am really enjoying having the white pop against the kraft background. So you can see here I'm just using some white acrylic paint and just doing some very simple mark making, like nothing fancy, like anybody can do this. And I was literally just doing like splotches. And the great thing about this is these little strips, like you can use them in lots of different ways. So I'm going to show you how I add it to my journal page as a bit of an edge, but you can also just like tear them up and use them almost as like pre-made collage. So it's a really great way, like if you make a bunch of these all at once, you can then have them like on the go, or just if you want to add a bit of collage to a page, you've got it like ready to go with all sorts of different mixed media that you might have added onto it. So like this has got paint. I also came in with stamps, with crayons as well. I used a salmon coloured Neocolor, which is one of my favourite crayon colours to use, but that really popped as well against the kraft. I think it was because it was such a, I don't want to say neon, but it really was a strong colour against the kraft in a way that wasn't too in your face colourful, but it still had quite a nice impact. So like colourful for me, I guess, which if you are familiar with the things that I create, you'll know that that is colourful for me. I do tend to stick to my neutral palette, but I really love making these collage strips. I've made them on several different surfaces, like I've used tissue paper, I've used tracing paper, vellum. You could do it in all sorts of different ways, and I think this as well might also work quite nicely with that greyish paper that I was talking about earlier, where you kind of look at it and think, oh well, I can't necessarily use that as a background bound into a page, like it just doesn't look as nice as like a warm paper bag, for example. Try and think about how you could add some like mark making or collage onto it and kind of work with it to create a base that you can then add to a page or add to your journal. So having these I think will be really great for adding to this journal and also to other journals as well, but I kind of made it a bit of a focus for this journal that I'm going to try and work with brown papers in as many creative ways that I can think of. So if there's a certain way that you love to use brown paper in your journal, I'd love to hear them. I'm sure others would too. So as well as all of the collage and mark making that I have added to these collage strips, I also came in with some rub-on stickers, which are amazing because they don't add as much bulk to anything that you add them to, but I think they especially shine on these collage strips, and I love adding them just as a way to add some imagery, but again, nothing too in your face. And as a bit of a finishing touch, I also came in with some stamping. So I'm just using a sepia toned ink here and a text or like faux text stamp, and I'm positioning that like off the edge of the strip as well, so it doesn't feel too rigid when I have stamped it onto it. And I've put some brown paper underneath to use as a backing, so just as a way to obviously save it from going on my desk. So of course you can use the brown paper as underpaper as well, I think it's called, where you have it underneath whatever you're doing and like the little bits of like paint or stamping go on it, and then you can use that as collage paper once it's got enough texture on it. But these are the finished strips here that I have created, and I'll show you now how I am going to include this in one of the journal pages. So obviously there's different ways that you can use this, and what I decided to do was have this go along the edge of a page, and I thought that it would be a nice way just to have some interest and some detail. And I ended up ripping one of the pages that was on top of it, so that way you could see the patterns and the texture when you were on other pages of the journal. And having that eclectic look with the pages all being different sizes and seeing different things peeking through is definitely something that I am leaning towards a lot more within my journals. So you can see there how it looks peeking out of the pages and acting as a border on one of my pages. Now, I feel this wouldn't be a junk journaling video if I didn't show you at least one way that I've used the brown paper to make a pocket here, and I actually ended up using this as a tuck spot that then just paper clips to the page. So if you have any brown paper bags, this is obviously a great way to make best use of the fact that it's already like bound into pretty much a pocket shape already. So I just cut off one of the corners here and I pretty much just eyeballed it to whatever size pocket I thought I might want to include within the journal, but it's a pretty large, almost full page one. So it's the perfect size for adding tags and larger items to. So all I did was take one of the corners and fold it down until it met the opposite edge of the page, as you can see me showing there. And then I folded that inwards. So I already created the fold, and that way it just made it a lot easier when tucking that part into the pocket itself. And then just press down on the edge there, and you can see that's made an easy place for you to add the tags and to also show, a bit of them in the pocket as well. So I just took some washi tape here. You can use obviously any tape, and I just secured the edge there to make sure obviously that nothing falls out of the pocket. We don't want that. And that is basically it. It's really easy, nothing groundbreaking. I did round the corner of my pocket. You can of course just use scissors if you want to do that as well. I just think it adds a really nice touch and elevates it a little bit, I suppose. So when it comes to decorating, obviously you can do whatever you fancy on the pocket itself, but I just decided to come in with some stamping and a washi sticker, a little bit of like collage. I added some words to it. I also came in with my favorite white pen, which is a Uniball Signo. I find the opacity is really good on that, and so I kept it fairly subdued in terms of what I was adding to it, but obviously the possibilities for decorating it are endless. You can add whatever you'd like to it, and I ended up adding a little like word phrase sticker here, and I just used some brown paper behind it so that it didn't get too lost on the sticker that I had already added to the page. And then I just circled it there just to kind of make it stand out a little bit. And that is my finished decorated pocket there, and I'm just showing you how I've added some tags in. So the white one obviously really pops and contrasts against the brown paper pocket, but the brown tag that I have there is actually one that I just cut out from some brown cardboard. So if you don't have any tags, then just cut a tag shape out of some card and you've got a tag to add into the pocket there. So you could either glue this down, or I've just added it with a paper clip, and there's my finished pocket. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some tabs onto this journal. So I have a few different things here. I have some thicker brown card, which I think came in the backing of something, and I've cut this down into little strips and folded them in half. And what I did is I went and looked for pages where the brown papers contrasted with each other. So this was like a lighter brown, so I added it onto the pages that had a darker brown. Again, I think it's all about like working with the contrast with this brown paper in order to not make everything look completely the same. So I just added a couple onto the edge there with my stapler, so super easy. And I also had a little tag here. I think this came off a mug, like a soup mug, and I kept it because I thought, oh, that's a really cute little tag. I'm sure I might use that one day. And I actually ended up just using the entire tag as a tab. So I turned it on its side and just stapled it on, and I thought that this might be quite nice because with the pre-punched hole, because it's a tag, I might come back and maybe add some string or like something onto that to embellish it, but it's just slightly different and has a bit more of that junk journal vibe. So of course I could have added some patterns onto it, but I just wanted to stick with that. Now, Something that is a little bit more intricate is that I made these like ruffle tabs. So I basically just folded the paper into a ruffle pattern. So I've tried to slowly show you here the way that I folded the paper in on itself, and every time I folded it I've just added a bit of glue underneath to secure it, and then just kept folding along the strip there to create a bit of a faux ruffle. And I've seen people run these through a sewing machine, but me and my sewing machine are not friends, and so if you don't have a sewing machine as well, next best thing is to just grab a needle and thread and just do a little bit of hand stitching. I really love this as well because it gives such a nice like handmade touch to it, and has some nice detail with the different threads that you can add. So I went for a really pale pink, which I think pops against the kraft paper. So I just did a really simple stitch down the middle of the tabs here and then folded them in half. So it's nothing special, but I think it just looks a little bit more detailed with the folded paper and the stitching, and I think it has quite a scrappy feel to it as well. So I added a couple of these onto the journal, and to be honest I may make some more for this journal, but those were the tabs that I added to the journal, and just another interesting way to use the brown paper to embellish our journal pages. The next way that I've used brown paper is a bit of a 2-for-1. So I created a layered page that is also an extension of a smaller page. So I'll show you the layered first because it's super simple. I literally just tore up different shades of brown papers here, and I went for 3 and I just layered them up into a little bit of like a mini booklet almost, and I just stapled the top. So I added 2 staples to them, so it creates a little bit of a flip book. So it's really good if you want some more space within your journal to add maybe hidden journaling or just some extra bits and pieces. So you can see there I've immediately unlocked some more space for my journal. And in the brown paper journal that I bound, I included some like really small scraps as pages. And so what I did was I just took my Pritt Stick glue stick and attached this to one of the smaller pages to create a larger page. So on one side it's got the flip up elements, and then on the other side I've just basically created a larger page within this journal. So I hope you enjoyed following along with these ideas, and I will see you in the next one.